For more than half a decade, medical marijuana has been legal here in New York State. And since the program started in 2014, it has grown substantially. And now a decision from the state's Cannabis Control Board will help it grow even more, this time inside people's homes. We have some numbers to share with you. In July of 2018, the state reported having almost 60,000 registered medical cannabis patients and 1,700 providers. Fast forward to the beginning of this month, and those figures have risen to more than 124,000 patients and about 3,800 practitioners. A lot more people are eligible to get the medicine, but the big concern remains paying for it. So to help offset the cost, you now have this new regulation just announced recently that starting on October 5th, certified patients and caregivers will be able to grow their own plants at home, up to 3 mature plants and 3 immature plants. You just have to stay under 5 pounds total of marijuana grown at your home. Dr. Laszlo Mechler has treated countless medical marijuana patients as the medical director at Dent Neurologic Institute, and he joins me now live. Dr. Mechler, I know you started the cannabis clinic there. You have firsthand knowledge about the impact of this. We've talked about it many times. What does this mean for your patients and for others across the state that they're soon going to be able to grow their own medicine?
Thank you for having me on. This is an interesting phenomenon. I have reservations at multiple levels. You mentioned there's 124,000 patients in New York State. We have about over 10% of those patients. So we have close to 13,000 that come to our institute. And this is for medical marijuana. First of all, for the audience, we have to differentiate recreational adult marijuana. We're not talking about that. We're talking about medical marijuana, which was concerning because as soon as you approve recreational, then usually medical marijuana becomes a afterthought. But at the same time, over the last 5-6 years, my major problem was, even though I saw our group saw 13,000 patients, I would say close to 30 to 40% of patients came back or never came back saying they can't afford it. And that was always very frustrating. So I really believe in the medical use of cannabis, but in New York State, it's unaffordable. Now, that sounds like something that is, obviously very frustrating for the New York State residents. But at the same time, why is it so expensive in New York State? It's because it was overregulated. But overregulation actually is good in my perspective because all I wanted to do is research that we can do on cannabis, because the main problem in medicine is that the medical societies and doctors have not accepted this as a treatment for medical conditions. I personally believe in it, but I need to prove this. So I would rather see New York State and the federal government descheduleize cannabis or marijuana from a Schedule 1 to something else so we can do prospective research. Wouldn't it be nice to say to insurance companies that based on the study we did here at Buffalo, that based on the result in a prospective randomized study, that it works, and then we can prove that and publish it, and then payers, healthcare payers would have to then pay for it because it's been studied. All we're doing right now is passing the cost over to individuals. And I have to say that I have concerns at multiple levels. The first concern is purity. If I can mention that the New York State has regulated for heavy metals, for fungus, for bacteria, and for pesticides and insecticides. Who's going to be checking for homegrown cannabis? Nobody is. How do you know what the dosage? Is it really actually THC, or is it more CBD, or is it too much THC? Let me just give you one statistic, is that in the 1960s, the THC content of a plant was about 4%. Today, it's above 25%. It's a much stronger, and THC is the one that's going to take you to the hospital with a potential side effect if you don't eat it right as an edible and so on. So that's one of my concerns, and I have multiple concerns.
Well, Dr. Metzler, for someone who's watching right now, with those concerns in mind, what is going to be your advice to those patients if they decide, look, I can't go to the medical marijuana dispensaries and buy it because I can't afford it. I have the ability to now grow it in my home. That's what I'm going to do. So how do you help them, or what advice do you give to them through that process so they can make sure they address the concerns you're having?
I would say 95% of my patients are not going to do this because the average age of my population is 62. And 62 and 70-year-olds with chronic pain are not going to put down about $2,000 up front that's what it's going to cost an individual, $2,000 to start growing at home. But listen to the other problem. Now you have up to 5 pounds of cannabis that you can grow, which is a cost of $5,000 to $10,000. Imagine the security issues that are going to happen if somebody knows you're growing cannabis in your house. I mean, right now, the illicit market is going to find out who's growing it and potentially increase crime. So I'm concerned about the security of my patients. But like I said, my patients are here for medical marijuana, and up to now, I've known what percentage of THC, CBD. Now it's a free-for-all. You don't know what you're growing because you're not testing it. You don't know what the contaminants are. So what am I going to tell my patients? I don't think I'm going to tell them a lot because I don't think they'll be interested in growing it when they look into it. I understand why they wanted to do this because it was too expensive. I got that. But there's other ways to do it. We should be looking at cannabis as a medication that is approved by insurance companies, by workman's comp, by NOFOL, and they should be paying it for our patients, not haphazardly by letting them grow their own. I mean, that's really, in any form of medicine, it's unheard of.
Yeah, and of course there are efforts underway in Congress, and I know that you and I have talked about this multiple times as well, to move it from a Schedule I drug down to Schedule II, to make it available for insurance companies. Medicare doesn't cover it right now. Medicaid doesn't cover it right now. So we'll see if any of that changes. Always great to get your perspective and insight on this. Dr. Laszlo Metzler is the medical director at Dent Neurologic Institute. Thanks for your time, sir.
My pleasure.